If you think about any paragon of love, Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa, Gandhi, think about that like very loving person that you know, and you'll notice that they all have boundaries. My name is Joe Hudson. I'm a former venture capitalist and a coach to some of the most notable names in Silicon Valley. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to draw boundaries and how you can feel great doing it. So the first thing is, how do you draw a boundary that opens your heart? Now this kind of doesn't make sense for a lot of people, so let me make it really clear. Oftentimes we get this feeling that if we draw a boundary, they're going to think that we don't love them. But that's not the case at all. It allows people to know they're safe. It allows people to know what we want. We can't really trust somebody's yes if they're always saying yes. Yes, yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that. You'll know that the resentment is coming. You'll know that the other shoe is going to fall because they always say yes. And when somebody can say no to you and they can do it without a hard heart, man, you can really trust them. So it's really important that you do it with an open heart, that you really allow each boundary, you consider the boundary before you draw it and you say, hey, no matter how they react to it, does it open my heart? That's the first thing that you need to know to draw a boundary. Now, the second thing is that you do not want to get into a power struggle, so you're never going to tell them what they're going to do or what they have to do. You're always going to talk about what you're going to do. So let's say you have somebody who always gets angry at you, and you don't want that in your life anymore. So you draw this boundary. And the boundary isn't, you need to stop yelling at me. The boundary is, hey, when you yell at me, I am going to leave. My wife and I, we were in our 20s, and we had grown up in families where yelling at each other was always a thing. And I remember we were yelling at each other. We were repeating that pattern. We had this great therapist. She was an older lady at the time. I think maybe she's like our age now. But anyways, there was this great moment where she goes, oh, that's verbal abuse. She goes, you're yelling at each other is verbal abuse. And it hit both of us, and we're like, no, it isn't. And she's like, no, here, this is the definition of verbal abuse. And we're like, oh, crap, it's verbal abuse. And at that moment, we realized, oh, that's not okay. But we also, for whatever reason at the time, couldn't control the yelling. We couldn't stop our yelling. And so what we could do is we could just gently walk away and say, hey, I'm gonna walk away if you're yelling. And so oftentimes one of us would say, hey, I'm gonna walk away, I'll be back in 10 minutes. And the other one would get even more angry. And I realized oh, get angry as you want. I'm gonna walk away either way. It's all good. I don't need to stop your anger. I just need to stop listening to it for a while so that I can be back in myself, and then I can come back with more love because my heart is more open. It's just that simple. Now, some important things here is that when you leave, you always tell somebody when you're going to be back. Because if you don't tell them that, it feels like abandonment. So you never want to have the person feel abandoned, because that's only going to entrench the behavior, because they get even more scared and it's even more of a power struggle. So you just want to let them know that you'll be back when the conditions are right, when you are comfortable and safe and feel good about coming back, which really helps you refine the thought process that it is about what you're going to do, not what they're going to do. You can't control another person. There's this great indigenous saying, and it says, I would rather move a mountain than change a person because moving a mountain is easier. And that's absolutely the case in boundaries. If you get into a place where you're trying to change the other person, it is an uphill battle the whole way, but you can control your behaviors every single time. So the third thing about the boundary is how you say it. So oftentimes, somebody drawing a boundary is really scared of being attacked. And so they're going to say it either, oh my gosh, I'm scared you're going to attack me, which invites an attack, or you're going to say it yeah, this is how the boundary is. Your attack isn't going to hurt me. It's going to be very hard, which also invites an attack. But if you have a good boundary, what would make you care if they attack you? You're just like, hey, I'm not going to be here for this. And they're like, I'm attacking you. And then you're like, yeah, so I'm leaving now. The thing about a boundary is you only care about the response when you aren't firm on your own boundary, when you're not okay with your own boundary, when you say, no, it's not okay for me to leave, or it's not okay for me to take care of myself. That's the only time you're really scared of an attack. So if you can't overcome your fear of the attack, if you can't get over the idea that they're going to run over your boundary or they're going to attack you, then the real work is to be okay with the boundary yourself. To say, yeah, it's okay for me to walk away if someone's yelling. And if you start really looking at that, the only times it's not okay for us to draw a boundary is when we can't draw the boundary to ourselves. So if we yell at ourselves, it's hard for us to see that it's not okay for somebody else to yell at us. If we criticize ourselves all the time, then it's hard for us to draw a boundary with somebody who's constantly criticizing us. So the real work is being okay with the boundary, because once you are, their attacks really aren't relevant, because you can always leave until they're ready to settle down and treat you with respect. It's just that simple. So if you like the video, please subscribe, and in the comments you can write anything that you want us to make a video on, and of course, watch the next video.